All right, guys, it's another mock draft 3.0. Let's do this. It's the Hoopsner Show. All right, guys, let's just get right into this. I am going to switch over to the screen here. Let's see. Oh, great. Here we go. Okay, we finally figured it out. Okay, so last time in 2.0, man, this is just not going great, is it? They're really not making this easy on me. All right, so let's just dive in. Let's zoom in here and just get started. So first pick is an easy one. We know what that's going to be. Anyone who picks other than Victor Wembanyama for San Antonio is incorrect. Victor Wembanyama, you know, there may be injuries. There may be things that go wrong. That's also something that can happen to every other player in this draft. But we're going with Victor Wembanyama because you've just 7'5". He's athletic. He's literally going to play small forward at 7'5" and be really athletic and shoot the ball. I don't know who's going to block that shot. It's going to be ridiculous. Yes, there's some things to be, you know, there's been games that he hasn't played super well in, but he's 18, 19, whatever he is. He's going to be incredible. San Antonio absolutely won the pick since the pick of the last 20 years since LeBron James. So easy pick. All right, number 2. This is where the draft really starts, and you're picking between Scoot Henderson and Brandon Miller. I just think it's not particularly that hard to pick on this. You know, Brandon Miller may turn out to be Paul George and may be unbelievable, and I think that's a good comp for him if everything pans out for what he wants to be. But I just think Scoot Henderson is such a high floor and also has a high ceiling for what he can become. He looks like he has very much kind of a Chris Paul type game with some explosion and athleticism. Like early Chris Paul was unbelievable, and I think that's what Scoot Henderson has a chance to be. And anyone who's worried about his three-point shot, that's going to come around. If it doesn't, I'd be surprised, but even if it doesn't, he's already great in the mid-range. He can pull up from left or right running the pick and roll, which is a playoff shot. He is going to be fantastic. And one of the things I was thinking about with Scoot Henderson, you just watch the playoffs right now, and you know who would be thriving in this finals is Scoot Henderson with what he can bring with his explosion, athleticism, with his ability to shoot the ball, and by the way, his defensive intensity as well. So I'm going with Scoot Henderson to Charlotte. I know it's not the greatest fit, but when you're the number 2 pick in the draft, I don't think fit is something that you're worrying about too much, right? I think fit is something that you worry about when you're trading for players or going into free agency and things like that. When you're like the top 3 in the draft, and Charlotte was one of the worst teams in the NBA last year, you shouldn't worry about fit. Make Scoot Henderson work with LaMelo Ball. You know, they're going to get Gordon Hayward back and then possibly Bridges too. So this might actually be a pretty decent team. And I actually think LaMelo Ball would do good to play off of someone a little bit. And it's not just the LaMelo Ball show. It might actually help him be a little more healthy. Brandon Miller, this is an easy choice for number 3. I mean, if you like Brandon Miller for number 2, I'm not going to hate it, but I personally would pick Scoot. Brandon Miller has a chance to be Paul George. He has a chance to be really fantastic. One of the things everyone talks about when they talk about Paul George is just how big he is. You didn't realize he's a legit 6'9", 6'10". We need some Mountain Dew. He's going to be interesting to watch. I mean, he can become that player, but quicker than Paul George did, because Paul George took 3 or 4 years for Paul George to become Paul George in Indiana. Once he did, he was unbelievable. And he was guarding LeBron and he was doing all these things. Now, I don't know if Brandon Miller can be that good defensively as Paul George, but offensively, I think he can. And I think it's not to say that Brandon Miller can't be that defensively. I think he can, and he's shown defensive intensity, but Paul George is an elite defender at his peak. And so we'll see if he can become that. If he becomes Paul George, that's an absolute home run for Portland. And Portland may be trading the pick. The thing with Portland is, who are they trading the pick to? If you're going to be trading Damian Lillard, or if you're going to be trading Anthony Simons, you got to find teams that both have a contract that matches and have pieces that they want, you know? I can think of like 2 or 3 teams that maybe can do that. Maybe. You know, one is the Utah Jazz and one is the Oklahoma City Thunder, but is Portland going to really want what they want to give? And does Utah really want to give, like, I mean, you're not getting this pick for, you know, maybe Walker Kessler, but does Utah really want to give up a good contract in Walker Kessler, who probably is not going to command too much money in 4 or 5 years? Do you really want to give up Lauri Markkanen for the number 3? So maybe you get a slight upgrade in talent with with Brandon Miller or Scoot, and I don't think Brandon Miller is a sure thing. I just don't know. Maybe with OKC, maybe, maybe they'd be interested in one of the Williams. They're the Jalen Williams, the J-Lie Williams. I don't know. Maybe both Jalen Williams, and then you get Brandon Miller. I don't know. But my guess is they just take Brandon Miller because he's going to be pretty good, and he plays off of those guys. And you know what? Just have Shaedon Sharpe and Brandon Miller, and you've got two really impressive, interesting young wings, and that's going to be fun to watch. All right, spent too much time on that. Houston, another team to watch for a trade that is going after James Harden, and I've heard little things that's legit. Watch for that. Unless James Harden is trying to kind of bully his way into a contract with Philadelphia, which is likely going to work because what's his name? The general manager there is just Daryl Morey is going to absolutely make everything happen to keep him. He's just like infatuated with James Harden. But Harden might want to go back to Houston where his family is. And if they don't make a trade, then we'll see what happens. But, I think right here, you really have a pick between two guys. I know some people have talked about Assar Thompson higher. I know KOC from the Ringer actually put him at like 4 or 5, I can't remember. But Amen Thompson to me is I just don't, and I know the shot isn't beautiful. I know it's not great. But I'm still going to go with Amen Thompson there. This is more of a big board for me. Same thing with Houston. I mean, unless they get James Harden, they're trying to fill their roster. By the way, the Rockets, like a week or two ago, there's this one Twitter account that just tells you who followed who, and it's kind of interesting. But one follow, usually it's like some of them are like, okay, what is this guy following? By the way, shout out to Zion Williamson. But anyways, recently one of the more interesting follows was the Houston Rockets followed Draymond Green, who's going to have a free agency this upcoming season, by the way. I thought that was interesting. Are they going after like James Harden and Draymond Green? That would be interesting. So maybe they're trading that pick. I don't know. But I just think Amen Thompson, the ceiling with Amen Thompson is out of this world. His first step is just bonkers. His athleticism, he's like Vince Carter when he jumps to the rim. It's just unbelievable. I know the shot is not good, but these guys, the Thompson twins, they are great kids. They work really hard. They've come out of nowhere and developed into what they are. And to think that they're just not going to stop developing, I mean, I guess Houston's not a great place for developing players. We've seen them really kind of waste talent there. So maybe this isn't a good place for him. In fact, it's almost making me want to talk myself into Cam Whitmore there. But I just think Amen Thompson, the tools, the athleticism, the character, the work ethic, all of it just shows signs of someone that's going to be amazing. And he's also really smart. He makes really smart plays with the basketball. He is one of those guys that's just naturally gifted with basketball IQ, where he knows what paths to make. It's just natural. Where some guys, like, that's why Cam Whitmore sometimes scares me, because I don't really see that the same way with him as I do with Amen Thompson. Amen Thompson, he understands it already. He knows kind of how to play basketball, right? He knows how to pass the ball. He's going to average like 6 to 8 assists a game. He just is, because he's so incredibly athletic. And in this NBA day and age, it's the same thing with this finals. Yes, no one would guard him in these finals, so he would struggle a little bit. But my goodness, the first step is so incredible. And good luck to everyone on Denver, or I guess Bam could probably contest him at the rim, but no one on Denver is stopping him get to the rim. I'm telling you, this guy is unbelievable. So it's just an upside pick that would be fantastic. All right, next, I am going to go with Cam Whitmore. The upside is incredible. Detroit should be pretty excited about having Cam Whitmore on this team. He can play off of Cade Cunningham. And I always forget his name, the point guard there. I really like him too, and I always freaking forget. We're just doing this live. I don't care, because I hate it when I forget. James Wiseman's there. I forgot. Jaden Ivey, who's just fantastic. He's fun to watch. He is so electric, and he got better throughout the entire season last year. Detroit is going to be a league pass team, and I know Detroit fans have to be just absolutely just devastated that they didn't get that number one, but to get Cam Whitmore and to pair him with Cade Cunningham, who was all out all last season, he is actually kind of a nice finisher type, and I think he could be really nice for them. And who knows, there is upside there with him because of his athleticism. He has pretty good size. He's smaller than I would like, because 6'7", but he's one of those guys that reminds you it's like 6'5" without shoes. He's just not super big. And I know he kind of plays low to the ground, which is good basketball technique, and that's what you want your players to do when they're handling the ball. So I think his handle is just going to get better because he naturally, or at least has trained himself to play low to the ground. but he just looks smaller to me, except for when he explodes. So we'll see how that translates. He's going to be fascinating to watch in the league because who knows, and I think Victor Wembanyama, when all is said and done, will be the best prospect from this draft. I'd be really surprised if he wasn't. But I think in a lot of ways, I wouldn't be surprised if like Cam Whitmore was the second best player from this draft, So, all right, Cam Whitmore, Orlando. Things have kind of changed. So last time I picked Jarris Walker for them, someone made a comment like, why not Taylor Hendricks? I'm still not big on Taylor Hendricks either. When making this pick, this is where things get really kind of tough. I mean, this is where this mix between Orlando, Indiana, Washington, Utah, it really gets interesting with what Orlando does. Orlando wants to win. They are in this spot. They could have tanked last season. They started off with like the worst record. It was not going well. But the last half of the season, they had an over 500 record for like the last half of the year. They were really good. And I think they're going to want someone that's going to be really good for them. And I actually think, Jarris Walker, I would, if I'm picking between guys, I think I'm taking Jarris Walker because I think he has a higher ceiling. We've seen him pass the ball. He has like passing ability. He's a defensive. I mean, he has potential. There's some Draymond Green to what he does defensively, and it's exciting to watch. But you know what? Taylor Hendricks, in some ways, these guys are really similar, where I think the defensive ability of Jarris Walker is a little higher. But you know what? They might be equal, and I think Taylor Hendricks is a plug-and-play player that can hit the three, and one thing that Orlando struggled with last year is just hitting threes. I think Taylor Hendricks goes here at 6. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens at all. This right here, I'm not totally sure what Houston and Detroit are going to do. It kind of depends on what Houston wants, and I wouldn't be surprised if Houston takes Cam Whitmore. I would take Amen Thompson just for the upside. But Taylor Hendricks, I think, goes here because, one, you know what you're getting. He's a high floor player. And I actually do think there's some room for him to grow as an offensive player as well, where he can kind of hit he's very much, in my opinion, John Collins with much better defense, which is honestly a great player. That is a great starting player that can be on a contender. He'll knock down threes. He will defend. He has actually some really interesting ability to protect the rim off, from the weak side. So really nice pickup for them. I think they'd be pretty ecstatic to get Taylor Hendricks here. He will fit right. I mean, he's the perfect player to play off of Paulo Banchero and Franz Wagner. So I think they go Taylor Hendricks. Now, Indiana has another tough decision to make here because it's these guys right here, Jarris Walker, Anthony Black, Assar Thompson. Assar Thompson is the complete upside pick. And the question is Indiana interested in losing more games next year? They were unabashedly tanking and they got to 7 because of it. So they were pretty smart because now they get to choose between all these different players. Jarris Walker, man, it's interesting to me that he's now kind of looking like he might fall to 7, 8, maybe even 9. I think they probably want the win now prospect, which in my opinion is Jarris Walker. He is the perfect fit for them. They need some defense because, they have, Miles Turner, isn't it? Miles Turner. Just let's make sure. Yep. Miles Turner is a really, really nice defensive center and he can spread the ball. And then Jarris Walker could fit perfectly next to him and also can spread the ball. That's the difference between him and Hendricks. I think it's pretty for sure that Hendricks is going to shoot the 3 well. Jarris Walker, it's a tiny bit of question mark, but I still think he'll do fine. Jarris Walker, I think, is what they're going to do here. And so let's put him there at Indiana. And that's a home run pick for them. He's a winning player. He will make just game-changing defensive plays. And his upside is as a defender where he could be defensive player of the year caliber. That's how I think he's going to be awesome. It's very Draymond-esque. It's very Draymond where he can like switch. You can have him roam. You could have him play off of Miles Turner. He'll block shots. He will steal the ball. He is a game-changing on-ball defender. I mean, honestly, he's really exciting. And Indiana should be just ecstatic that if he goes there, even talking about, it's just a tough decision for Orlando because maybe they want that game-changing defender. The only thing is Orlando needs shooting. So Indiana gets Jarris Walker. If he becomes a shooter, this could be one of the steals of the draft. Just phenomenal. All right, Washington, who might be the most depressing team in the NBA. How they are at 8 is crazy. They just never seem to find a way to get up to the top. They never quite can make it. This is where things get really tough for them. Anthony Black is kind of a more... I guess one thing that comes with Assar Thompson, and this is why this is an interesting pick, I actually think Assar Thompson's going to fall to Utah. Maybe I've already given away what I think. Anthony Black might be the best perimeter defender in this draft. When you combine his quickness, his size, he's 6'8", and he's legit big. He moves well. He plays with ferocity. One thing I love is a dog, and Anthony Black is a dog, and he will play hard. He will be a bulldog on defense. He is a guy that's going to give everything he has. The question is the shooting, you know? But I guess if you're the Washington Wizards, they like to go with, I mean, I just think that Anthony Black might be on the top of their board. I think what he does is more proven because they've seen him in college. Assar Thompson comes from overtime elite, and that's why this Amen Thompson pick is crazy. And I wouldn't be surprised if Amen Thompson drops, because if a general manager gets scared, like Houston's general manager's got to be scared with that ownership there, Fertitta, whatever his name is. It's a volatile situation. Honestly, look at these ownerships. The only one is San Antonio, who knew what they were doing. They went after Victor. But Charlotte, Jordan's probably selling the team. Portland has been about as much problems and back like behind scenes garbage going on. Houston's the same way. Detroit, I mean, do they know what's going on half of the time? Anthony Black probably. Washington's the same way. Do they know how to? They just got a new GM too, by the way. So maybe he's going to go for Assar Thompson. You know what? I think they go with Assar Thompson. Even though I want him to follow the Jazz, I got to do what I think is going to happen. And I think Assar goes 8 to Washington, because I think he is just there. All the tools are there. I think he's not all that much different than Amen Thompson. He's proven he can actually kind of shoot the ball. And that's the knock with Anthony Black. And that's why Assar might be going at 8. Anthony Black, I think, is the next best prospect, and I think he goes to Utah, and I think Utah would be pretty darn excited. I really like Anthony Black, and there's video out there of him improving his jump shot. And, you know, sometimes you watch a guy, and I'm turning 40 this year, guys. I'm getting old. I've done this a long time. And one thing you kind of learn when you're watching these prospects, I do it every year. I'm honestly a little better. I mean, I'm going to pat my own back. I'm usually pretty close, and you can usually kind of predict who's going to be good. This is a good draft. I'm a little worried about Cam Whitmore. He's one of those guys I think might be worse than people think. He just gives me like, I could be wrong. And maybe he's the best player in the draft. There's also a world where he can't pass the ball and he doesn't know what he's doing, and he's smaller than we thought, and he's not hitting his threes, and it doesn't go very well. I think he'll be pretty good, but I have just a feeling that Anthony Black could be an awesome player, because he's big, he plays so hard, and guys that play hard on defense are usually the guys that care a lot. They're usually the guys that, you know, when you have a demon on defense, those are the guys that care. Those are the guys that in the offseason, if they care on the floor, if they care when they're playing the tournament, if they care like game 32 and you're playing like, you know, Kansas, you know, State or whoever on a game that no one's watching, and this guy's just killing it trying to defend his heart out, those are the types of guys you want on your team. And those are the types of guys that develop into something special. I think he'll be good. I know that Utah wants size at their position. Tony Jones talks about that a lot, that the Jazz want size at their position. So Anthony Black at point guard for the Jazz would be a blast. And I think he will figure out how to shoot the ball. If he becomes a mid-30s three-point shooter, you've got a steal, because his vision, his size. And by the way, being 6'8", 6'9" in this league is becoming a requirement for your playmakers. You know, if you can't see, I mean, one thing, you know, we're watching the finals right now. Jokic is incredible. He's playing phenomenal. You know, one thing that helps him and players like Luka Doncic and LeBron James, who are phenomenal passers, you know what helps? Being 6'8" or above. When you're 7 foot, 7'1" like Jokic is, you see everything. And so it helps. If you're like 6'1" and you're Chris Paul and you pass like he does, that's why Chris Paul is such a special player, like John Stockton and all those guys that are like 6 foot, 6'1", 6'2", and they're just incredible passers. That's a special thing, because what happens when you're 6'8" is you see it more. It's why quarterbacks in the NFL, you want taller guys. You want to see over the line of scrimmage. It's the same thing. If you're being guarded by a guy that's 6'8" and you're 6'1", it's just harder to see everything perfectly, right? But if you're Anthony Black and you're 6'8" and you see that passing lane, you can make that pass. The other thing being you're just taller and you make a pass, right? I mean, every pass Jokic makes, it's like this. Why? Because he's taller than everyone. Who's going to stop it, right? So anyways, you're 6'8" Anthony Black. This is a nice pick. He's going to defend. It might put this guy might be so good defensively, it changes things. So We'll see. Now, I made this pick back in, I think it was a couple weeks ago I did this. I still really like this. I know some people for the Dallas Mavericks, are hoping that Taylor Hendricks falls. I know there's some people that would love Anthony Black, obviously, because of the defense and the size. Sorry, he's going to Utah. I think Cason Wallace is a perfect pick for them. I actually love this pick for Dallas. I'm doing it again. I don't even care. I think Cason Wallace is such a perfect player to play off of what's his name? Luka Doncic. He defends like he might be up there with Anthony Black with his defense. Black's just bigger. But Wallace is just such a ferocious defender and can do so many different things. He's going to be great. And by the way, he's going to shoot 40% from 3 in the NBA. That's just, you can book it, okay? He is going to be a good shooter, but he's going to be a good spot-up shooter, and that's the perfect type of player to play with Doncic. And then he can run a little pick and roll, and we'll see if he can kind of develop. We saw that with Jalen Brunson, how he kind of became this off-ball player, and I think Cason Wallace can actually do that, because one thing about Kentucky guards, and we all know it, is they tend to be more than what they were. So I think Cason Wallace has a chance to develop to be even more than what he's shown. And that size with his defense, that is just perfect for what Dallas wants. And they want to win next year. And who knows if they sign Kyrie Irving. But I think Cason Wallace is a much better. I'd rather, honestly, at this point, would you rather have Kyrie Irving or Cason Wallace? Is that going to get me crucified in the comments? I know I love Kyrie Irving's game. I think his handle, his skill is out of this world. He's just not a very good defender. And so I think Cason Wallace is actually a better fit for them than Kyrie. And by the way, Kyrie's going to LA anyway. So, all right, Orlando gets another pick in this draft. So at 6, they get Taylor Hendricks. They get more shooting. I think at this point, they probably are interested. I think they need to trade. Let's go back to their roster really quick. I think they need to start thinking about team building. They've been team building for so long that the guy I want to trade, I'm trading Cole Anthony if I'm the Orlando Magic, and I'm seeing what I can get. Maybe they could even trade into the late first in this draft. But I'm trading Cole Anthony, and I'm bringing in Kobe Buffkin. And he is going to be an awesome pick for them. He can play backup point guard. You'll see what happens with, what's his name? Markelle Fultz, who's been just fantastic for them. I think Markelle Fultz is going to be their starting point guard for a long time. But then if you have Kobe Buffkin coming off the bench, his defense is really good. He can shoot the ball. He finishes at an elite rate at the rim. This is a steal for them at 11. He is going to play in, he fills that role that Cole Anthony plays. I just don't love Cole Anthony. I feel like he's kind of a black hole with his offensive game. And I think Kobe Buffkin is a better passer and will do a lot more things and can shoot the ball. And I think he can play off of Jalen Suggs too. So I really like that. Okay, Oklahoma City. This pick's going to really make me sad. Look how far back. Look how high he's jumped. I'm taking Bilal Coulibaly. This is the rumor. Oklahoma City is taking Bilal Coulibaly at 12, and I think that is a real rumor. So I think Coulibaly is going to Oklahoma City. I'm not going to lie. I would consider him at 9, although if Anthony Black's there, they probably go with Anthony Black because I think that's a more proven prospect. If I'm Utah, I think about trading to 11, by the way. I'm a Utah Jazz fan, so I'm always thinking Utah. But I think Coulibaly's going to Oklahoma City at 12. They're going to have, oh man, I keep forgetting everyone's name. I'm rusty, guys. Chet Holmgren's coming back. Anyways, I don't need it. So Chet Holmgren's coming back. They already have a set rotation. They have the J-Ly Williams that are going to play. So they need someone. They're okay kind of developing someone. And I think Bilal Coulibaly is one of those super high ceiling guys that can be fantastic for them. His first step is amazing. He is super athletic, and he has slowly gotten better for that Metropolitans 92 team or whatever it is with Victor Wembanyama. The thing about that's interesting is those European teams, they don't care about developing players. What they want to do is win. That's what they care about. And so Bilal Coulibaly has earned more and more minutes with them, playing against, pro guys in that. And that's not the best league. I don't even think that's the best French league or whatever league that is. But anyways, that's why Victor Wembanyama went there, so he could be featured. Because in Europe, they don't care. They want to win. So anyways, Bilal Coulibaly in that environment has really proven to be just someone that gets better and better and better. And so if he can continue that trajectory of improving in the NBA, you've got something special because he's got like a 7'2" wingspan. He's a legit 6'7", 6'8", and he's explosive and athletic. And he also shot like 35% from three overall, something like that. So his shot's a little mechanical, but this guy might be the steal of the draft. I'm not gonna lie. If we came back and said, look who they got at 12, why do you even tank? Because you can get Bilal Coulibaly at 12, and I would not be surprised that he checks all the boxes of one of those guys that could become incredible. And so I think that's a fantastic pick for them. All right, Toronto. We just saw the news today that we do this every time. I'm sorry, guys, but I don't care. Toronto Raptors. Let's look at their roster. What's his name? Fred VanVleet just announced that he's going to be testing free agency. So he is going for it this offseason. It's a good idea for him because this free agency is pretty barren. And I wonder what Toronto will do, if they'll try to do some sort of sign and trade maybe. But I don't know if that's going to really take into effect. I think if I'm Toronto, I'm just going for the best pick available. There's a lot of choices here. They could go for upside with a guy like Leonard Miller. They could go for a high floor with someone like Grady Dick who can shoot the ball, but you're not getting very much defense with him. I think G.G. Jackson's going to the end of the draft. He's the one that's dropping. They could also go for pure kind of offensive upside with Keontae George, Nick Smith. Keontae George, there's a hint of like Donovan Mitchell to him. I'm looking at this and seeing if anyone's... You know what? I kind of like... He dropped really far, and I think that was probably a mistake last time for me. This is a tough one. We got to exit him. Okay, let's see. So for them, I think, you know what? I really like the size. This is tough. I think they like size, although they got a new coach now, and maybe that's not as big a deal. Hasn't quite worked out as much as they'd probably like. I think they go with Jalen Hood-Schifino. I think he is just a awesome potential starting point guard in the NBA. He's 6'6". He defends. He can already run the pick and roll. He's running basically an NBA style offense in Indiana. I love Jalen Hood-Schifino. I think he's going to be really good. I think he's going to be starter level. And if you get a starter level player at 13, that's pretty great. And he could be a potential fill-in. I don't think he'll fill in and bring you the production that Fred VanVleet brought you right away, but I think he'll be really solid. So, New Orleans, that's the news today as well. They are trying to trade into top 2 or 3 to get Scoot Henderson. So we'll see what they do. So in a way, it's like, what would Charlotte pick at 14? We'll see, but they have a chance to pick another player. They're one of those teams that really does need, basically they need Zion Williamson to get out of the DMs, as they say, and get out of the restaurant, get out of Dunkin' Donuts, and get onto a basketball court. Can that just happen? Is that possible? Can we get some keto going? Anyways, yeah, don't go searching that on your work computer. I'll just tell you that. There's some drama in Zion's life. Zion is not in Zion right now. I'll just say that. But anyways, this New Orleans team, I mean, at this point, you've just got to go with best player available. I'm sorry. I'm just not a big Grady Dick fan. I'm just not. I think he fits here more with Atlanta. I'm going to take Nick Smith Jr. I'm sick and tired of the Nick Smith Jr. slander. This guy was slated to go top 5 like 4 months ago. Now he's down to 14. And guess what? He was hurt for most of the season. He played through the injury. It's hard to play through an injury when you're hurt, and there's a lot of pressure for him to prove he's really good. A lot of this is on the potential he came into the league, because this guy was like a top high school recruit. One of the top high school recruits in the country. It is very rare that those top high school recruits do not become like top 5, top 10 picks. Incredibly rare. And they usually become really good NBA players. Nick Smith Jr. I think is going to be a steal. I am pro Nick Smith Jr. If he is here at 16 and I'm the Jazz, I'm super happy to make that pick. He is like 6'4", 6'5". He defends hard. I love guys that play through injury. That to me is a pro. That is like a great sign. You want a guy that wants to play? Are you kidding me? The shooting, he's going to be honestly, I would be shocked if he's not shooting 36 to 40% from 3. And that's on pull-ups and spot-ups, right? He's going to be, in my opinion, he's basically like a CJ McCollum. is what he reminds me of, where he can kind of score from all three levels. He's got a smooth jump shot. His touch on that floater is great. If you want a player that has touch, that's going to score, is going to get buckets, he's probably like, at worst, he's like a nice sixth man, or maybe he becomes something more. And I tell you what, I think his passing's underrated. He made some passes this year that were just, I mean, and you know, they're just like lobs, but not every player can make the nice lob dunk pass, right? It's like something you just kind of take for granted. He can definitely do it, and he's big enough that he's going to have not a height disadvantage when he's playing. And if he can kind of play that point guard, that's going to be the difficult thing for him, I think, is he is going to be kind of a two guard that I think, if he wants to really take his game to new levels, really needs to be that point guard player. And why not? If he wants to and he's willing to put in the work, why not? But at 14, I think that's a nice pick for New Orleans, who gets just another bucket getter. Nice player who defends hard, too. He plays hard. I like guys who play hard. You know, that's why I don't like G.G. Jackson. Sorry, I'm not drafting G.G. Jackson, even at 28 for the Jazz. I'm sorry. I like guys that care. I like guys that play hard. I like guys that on any given night are going to, you know, play their hearts out and defend and just get injured because they're playing so hard. That's what I want. Those are the guys. All right, Atlanta. They are in hell right now. Atlanta is in cap hell. They have no idea what they're doing. They have a real problem with their contracts. But one thing that would help them is shooting. Let's give him Grady Dick. He can absolutely shoot the ball. His ceiling is probably like a Kyle Korver, where he can just shoot off of movement. He can spot up shoot. He can kind of dribble and pull into a shot, things like that. That's basically his game. And the thing is you got to give him a little credit. He can kind of move the ball and pass it a little bit, and he passes within the offense. He's an unselfish player. So he is going to help. Whatever offense he's on, he is going to help. And also what helps him is he's big. So he really is, he really is very much Kyle Korver with the size. That was what was so good about Kyle Korver, was his obvious insane shooting ability. But he was like 6'7", 6'8". Same thing with Grady Dick. And he can shoot off movement. He can get that. He's got lightning quick release. He's going to be an incredible shooter. He's going to be 3-point contest winning shooter. The question is, can he defend? And in college, he was being targeted. So if you're drafting Grady Dick, you've got to have a good system defense with other players that can really hide what he has in his deficiencies defensively. But man, he can shoot the ball. And any team out there is happy to get so at worst, he's coming off the bench and will just be a flamethrower shooting threes, you know, and it will spread the floor for everyone else. You know, Trae Young is going to love this guy because he can absolutely just knock down threes and help the Hawks win. So this is a home run for Atlanta, getting him at 14. Or 15. 16, the Utah Jazz. All right. Some people were kind of surprised that I picked. Last time I picked Nick Smith Jr., guess what? He went higher this time. So he's not even there to pick. If he falls to the Jazz at 16, I'm pretty excited. I'm not super big on Keontae George. I know some people really like him. It's just I've seen this story before. The 6'1" bucket getter. And I don't think teams that have a chance to win a championship are having that player be kind of a premier player on their team. I actually think Utah is going to trade up from this pick. I would be really surprised when you kind of look at what's going on here. You know, Bilal Coulibaly is not going to be here. And if Bilal Coulibaly is at 16, that is an absolute unbelievable home run for the Utah Jazz. If Jalen Hood-Schifino is there at 16, that's a home run for the Jazz. But we're being honest tonight, and these are the best players, and he's not going to be there. I think I'm not taking G.G. Jackson. No way. Keontae George, I'm sorry. I'm going to pass. It's too small. Leonard Miller, I'm kind of picking between either Jordan Hawkins or Leonard Miller. I think this time, Jordan Hawkins is going to the Utah Jazz. I think he is going to be an absolutely special shooter. I think he's not as big as Grady Dick. And that's what makes Grady Dick such a interesting prospect with his just offensive ability. Jordan Hawkins is like 6'4", 6'5", but he tries on defense. He gets a little bit targeted, but I think he's one of those guys that will really try. And he's a special shooter. This guy is just a special shooter. He's a winner. And how's that for old school analysis? He's a winner. He's a winner. He's a gamer. He shows up on game day. He hits those shots. So Jordan Hawkins, I think, is a guy that will knock down shots for the Jazz. Absolutely has a chance. There's some upside there too. Like maybe with his size, maybe he can kind of figure things out. But I haven't really seen much from him in terms of like a playmaker for others. So there's a little bit of a ceiling there where he's kind of a shooting guard and he's not big like Grady Dick, you know? So there's a little bit of a ceiling there, but he's such a good shooter that, you know, at worst, he's going to come off the bench. And playing bench units, things change when you're a bench player too. You know, maybe size isn't quite as important. You know, if you're playing against other smaller guys, against other bench units, you can get away with it a little bit. I could see Jordan Hawkins playing 10 minutes a game in a playoff game. I could, because he will knock down shots. And that's just such an important thing in the playoffs. So Jordan Hawkins at 16 to Utah. All right. 17, the Los Angeles Lakers with possibly Kyrie Irving, LeBron James, Anthony Davis. They were this close to getting a single win in the Western Conference. Actually, they got screwed a little bit, and I felt like LeBron really needed to pass the ball more. But anyway, so guess what? LeBron needs to pass the ball to people that will knock down shots. That's why there's a few players here I would be interested in. LeBron's not interested in a Leonard Miller, and he is kind of the GM of the Lakers a little bit. Right? Unless the Lakers trade this pick. Maybe they'll trade it to Utah. I don't know. But anyways, Leonard Miller is an interesting upside prospect. In my opinion, probably the next best prospect on the board here. And I think some people would think about getting Leonard Miller at 16 for Utah, and I wouldn't hate it because it is upside, and maybe I should have picked it for the Jazz anyway, but I just think Jordan Hawkins is a really special shooter. Leonard Miller, I just don't think... I actually think the perfect player to play, you know, there's Derek Lively. Actually, you know what? I think the Lakers got a little lucky, and Derek Lively goes to them at 17. I think he's a nice player to play with Anthony Davis that can allow Anthony Davis to play power forward a little bit. He can even, I mean, in workouts, it's, you know, and by the way, if I had $1 for every player that showed he could shoot the three in workouts and then in the game he didn't ever shoot a single three, I'd be doing okay. But anyways, Derek Lively, if he can shoot the three, it changes things. He's super, I mean, he was a little disappointing at I believe it was Duke, wasn't it? That whole team was disappointing, but he's got super athleticism. He's a bouncy big that can play with LeBron. He can help Anthony Davis play off the ball. He's the type of player that could extend Anthony Davis's career. Just make sure. Okay. So anyways, Derek Lively, I think, is a home run for the Lakers at 17. Really nice pickup. Miami, this is just an easy pick. Leonard Miller is the next best prospect. He went back to the G League to show what he could do. He's super, there's a lot of upside there. He can handle the ball. He can do a lot of things. It's really just, can he develop? Can he become more of he's shown flashes of shooting. Can he kind of develop that more? It's hard. The G League is different than the NBA. When you're on the NBA floor and you're playing against NBA guys, it's just hard. And it may be hard for him to find time on the floor, but this is a pretty nice spot for him in Miami where he's with Spo, with the Heat culture and all that, and he can develop alongside them. I think that's a nice pickup for them. So that's pretty great. Golden State. Keontae George is kind of dropping for me here. I think Keontae George is a nice player, but I don't see him going to Golden State. This is where you start thinking upside a little bit. And I'm going to just keep these players as if this is my top, whatever. I think Chris Murray goes to Golden State. I think Chris Murray is going to be a solid player. I think he's one of those guys that has size. He can shoot the ball and he defends. I mean, what else do you want? He's going to play off of Steph, off of Clay, off of those guys. He might actually find time on the floor. If he can knock down that three with consistency, which he showed he could kind of do, and then with his size and what he does, and he'll play hard. I mean, he's kind of a perfect role player for them. So this is where you're starting to get into like role players. Can this guy actually play? He might be able to actually play pretty quickly for them. And so I think that's a nice pickup. I think it's a solid pick for the Golden State. It's not the sexiest pick. It's not an upside pick, but it's a pick that will likely do well for them. Houston, number 20. This is where things get a little interesting. I think Jet Howard is being a little forgotten here. I don't know why he dropped so much last time. He's still a nice offensive player. I mean, what do they like more in Houston than guys that just shoot the ball? Let's just give him another one. This guy will get buckets. He will shoot. He won't defend at all, but he will shoot the ball. And he's like 6'8". So there's some potential there for him to be really nice. Nick Nurse isn't it Nick Nurse, or who is the new coach of the Houston Rockets? Or is it? No, it's the other guy that had issue. It's Ime Udoka, isn't it? Yeah. No, Nick Nurse. Where did Nick Nurse go? He went to Philadelphia. Yeah, Ime Udoka. So he's going to bring some toughness, and maybe he can help Jet Howard. Jet Howard, son of Jawan Howard, coach's son. So who knows? Maybe he can learn to defend in the NBA. Tough thing to do. Learning on the job in the NBA is not something you want to be doing. All right, but it's tough. But a lot of players can do it. Those are the ones who become stars. All right, so Jet Howard, he will shoot the ball in Houston, and who doesn't like shooters and ISO guys more than Houston? All right, Brooklyn has 2 picks in a row here. And you know what? At this point, get Keontae George. I'd rather have Keontae George than, man, I've been doing this so much. I'm sorry, guys. I'm a little rusty. Let's just look at their roster here. Let's see. So they've got, let's see, man, Ben Simmons. That's a whole video in itself. Spencer Dinwiddie. You know what? If you can find some way to get the ball into a playmaker's hand, I'm not a big Spencer Dinwiddie fan. I think Keontae George can absolutely shoot the ball, and I think this is a nice pickup for them. Keontae George was like a top, some people had him in the top 5, top 8 not too long ago. He got injured. He's just not super big, and he had some disappointing performances. So that's why he's kind of dropped. And he's kind of a little undersized. So you're looking at a guy that's likely coming off the bench. They already kind of have, what's his name that's coming off the bench? What was his name? Cam Thomas, who can kind of do the same thing. So that's a little bit of a redundancy, but he's just the best player available. And that's who I would pick. All right, Ryan Rupert has kind of dropped here. That's something to think about. Bryce Sensabaugh had another foot surgery. This is a guy that was, out of high school, was going to be a top recruit, and a lot of people were excited to see what not Bryce Sensabaugh, Dariq Whitehead. He was someone that a lot of people thought could be something really nice. Bryce Sensabaugh, too. He's a guy that can really shoot the ball, although he'll shoot you out of a game, too. You know what? Let's go Bryce Sensabaugh, because I think that he's someone that kind of is a little more proven. He can shoot the ball. He can play. They just like wings that can shoot there. And so they're adding that. They need like a superstar. I don't think any of these guys are going to become that, but he might. All right, Portland. Portland now is on the board again. They are probably going to want a player that kind of helps them win now, but I don't think he's there. I think Dariq Whitehead is a player that can kind of have some upside for them, and I'm going to put him there at Portland. If he gets healthy and he can slowly work his way in, they've been able to develop guys into shooters. So maybe he can kind of figure things out there. All right, Sacramento, the impressive Sacramento Kings, who had a really fun playoff run, fun season. Let's see. This is a tough spot for them because there's just, is there enough? This is a tough pick. I guess at this point when if there's not like a clear pick, let's go with a proven winner. I think Andre Jackson has a chance to be really nice. Let's get Andre Jackson to Sacramento. He showed some nice things, and I think he's going to be pretty decent. All right, Ryan Rupert. This guy is another upside pick. Who am I even on? I'm on Memphis. Man, they draft really well. They seem to know what they're doing. Sidy Cissoko is pretty nice. You know what? Let's go Sidy Cissoko to Memphis. He's one of those guys that seems like Memphis always drafts and does pretty well, and he's kind of the next player available. Honestly, he should probably go 24, but I don't know. I think at this point, these guys are at this point in the draft, and I'm not going to lie, I'm not as familiar with all of these guys as I've covered so many of the top 20, top 25 guys. These guys are kind of dependent on your team's ability to develop players. If you can develop guys like Memphis has, then you're probably going to be pretty decent. A lot of these guys, there's not a ton of difference. If you can develop them, then they will be nice, and they're probably going to come off the bench anyway. So you're kind of arguing over minuscule things here. All right, Indiana. I would just go upside with them, and I would take Ryan Rupert. He's got that length. I believe he plays in Australia, and he can kind of be an upside pick for them. Is it Australia? I can't remember if it's the French league. I can't remember, but I know he's French. It's just an upside pick, and maybe he could become something nice. Maybe he develops. It's really up to him. I think I love Maxwell Lewis. I hope he goes to the Jazz. maybe Charlotte just goes crazy, and maybe this is where G.G. Jackson goes. The potential there is huge. He was going to be the number one prospect next year, so this is like a huge pickup for Charlotte. Can they develop him? They don't have a great front office. They haven't had a great development record, and so we'll see. He's not a guy that played hard, and he's not a guy that played defense, and he, bad body language, all sorts of things. He was tweeting things that were like not great for. If that guy's in college complaining about his coach on Twitter, I'm not a big fan of that. Not a great sign. There's a lot of like red flags there. And so, yeah, I'm going with G.G. Jackson to Charlotte just because there's upside. He's big, he can get his shot, and he looks like he has a chance to be something. I mean, he could be really great, but there's just a lot of red flags, and I just don't want that in a locker room that is trying to win now. And Charlotte's not trying to completely win now. So that works for them. All right, Maxwell Lewis goes to the Jazz. I'd be ecstatic if he's there. Maybe I did this on purpose because I'm a Jazz fan. I don't care. This is my draft. Do what I want. And I'm going to be in the fantasy world where Maxwell Lewis falls to the Jazz. I think he has incredible upside. He's tall, long, athletic, can shoot the ball. And let's just close this out. Let's look up Colby Jones. I'm not going to lie. At this point, I don't know him as well. I don't know. All right, let's just give Colby Jones a Trace. I know Trace Jackson Davis from Indiana. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry, Indiana fans. If you're hating on me for not knowing Colby Jones, I don't care. I don't know a lot. But Trace Jackson Davis has some nice... He looks like he could be a nice pick and roll big for someone, and he's going to the Clippers at 30. So that's pretty... I don't know. That's the draft, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. Did I do a good job? Do you like what the pick was? It feels like a pretty good big board in a lot of ways to me, with a little bit of like where things I'm reading, things I'm seeing, changes, players going higher, players going lower. Maybe a little bit of need in there too. I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you think. Let's give a shout out to my all-stars, the guys that are members of the channel and are supporting, who I appreciate a ton. Let's give a shout out to Christian House Money, to Haas, Baby Elliott, Matson, Ezekiel Ricevia, the man from down under. See ya, Alexa later. Built for Tough, Alexander Tufts, Jorge Arrizaga, mi amigo de abajo, Jordan the Goat Best Roll, TGD Total Game Domination, Tyson Price, The Price is Right, X marks the spot for Zintas, Austin R. Grant, Editor Extraordinaire, DWCB, Darren Williams, Carlos Boozer, Patrick Google, the Connoisseur, and Robert Hall of Fame. Guys, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to the channel. I will talk to you next time.